right, we've gotten to the end of the week. It's a Friday. Of course, we started the week on quite a positive note because we had Franklin Kudjo, the boss of Imani, who gave us quite an interesting conversation, I must say. After that, we spoke to the Member of Parliament for Medina on Wednesday, and that engagement was equally exciting. But this afternoon, we're going to hear a voice that we have not heard before. Why? Because it is not a masculine voice. It's a woman, and we're going to talk about women in leadership. My name is Paa Kwesi Schandorf. We'll take a breather. When we come back, the details. Don't go anywhere.
Sorry, not sure.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Get ready for a transformational morning experience.
Sorena Shrine is here to build our spirituality, mental and physical well-being.
Through positive, inspiring actions and stories.
We bring you exciting activities and conversations that develop us as a people and as a nation.
We take a look at the trending issues in Ghana and the rest of the world.
And we also review the impacting stories from our local newspapers.
Every morning, we bring you stories of hope, change, and renewal.
We empower you through the Word of God and provoke you to live the purposeful life destined for you.
Join us, Anita Kwaku
and the Reverend 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘 Agbamanya, Monday to Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we take you on an inspiring journey, live and exclusively on WTV.
You may also join us on Facebook at WTV Ghana and on YouTube at 𝗟𝗵𝗏𝗃 Ghana.
Sorry, not Shrine.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Sorena Shrine is brought to you by
Danwell Insurance, Multi-Credit Savings and Loans,
and the Methodist University Ghana.
Praise God, praise God. Christ in tea, you respond, yeah, addition. I'm excited to announce to you, friends in the Lord, are you seeking for a platform where you can pray? Open baby up a soul bompire. Now ninyami edi inkita home. Bibi chile so. And I'm maybe not the same kum. And you're coming home. Let's go into the prayer room on WTV every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. to meet seasoned ministers of God that God has raised to impact your life. Remember, John Wesley said, I have too much to do, therefore I spend several hours in prayer in able to do it. That is why we are calling upon you. Meet myself, Reverend 𝗟𝗪𝗏𝗃, and the Evangelism Missionary Renewal Directorate as we lead you into the prayer room where we encounter Christ. And I believe your life will never be the same. Call your friends, your loved ones, every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. where we will encounter Christ. God bless you. See you on our screens on WTV every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. God bless you.
That each and every one of us.
After today, we are getting into the weekend, and I cannot wait because personally it's been quite a stressful week for me. But apart from that, today we want to focus on quite an interesting conversation. I deem it personally interesting because it's a conversation that normally we do not have, and for the very few times that we have even had it in the very first place, we leave it after the discussion. But we are hoping that when we are done discussing the participation of women in governance on this platform here and now, there would be some actionable steps to, as it were, actionalize all our perspectives that we'll be sharing on this particular platform. It's only a few weeks ago that we were celebrating mothers, how that mothers are beautiful, mothers are amazing, blah, 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 and all of that. But when it comes to proper national discourse, more often than not, we hardly see their impact and visibility. opinions have been divided. Some have shared the view that, look, it's not because women cannot come to the fore, but there have been systematic bottlenecks that have impeded their active participation. We'll delve into all of that, but as always, there is W Briefs, and this is where we serve you the fine facts on every issue that we itemize for discussion. So let's get into the briefs on women and governance. Now, women form more than 50% of Ghana's population and a significant proportion of the country's voter population. This is very emphatic. It means that if you look at the bulk of Ghanaians, more often than not, or on a regular day, you will see that women are the majority. If they are the majority, why are they the minority at the places of influence? We move on. But despite Ghana's huge female population, women are often underrepresented in leadership positions in social, economic, and political spheres of the country, and this is overwhelmingly true. Don't forget that the submissions that we churn out here are based on facts, and very soon we're going to show you why women are often underrepresented. Now, although the number of women in the national leadership roles have increased over the years, the gains have been marginal and slow. So at a point they were completely out. Then of course there were a number of advocacies to have them come to the fore. They have come to the fore, but even that, it has still been marginal and extremely slow. We are proceeding. Now, in 2012, there were 29 females and 246 males among the 275 members of parliament. So 275, but only 29 of those legislators were women, and that represented a very devastating, or if you like, very troubling figure, because it was paltry. Actually, 11% of females in 2012 were part of Ghana's legislature. Let's see what happened in the year after 2012. Then in 2016, after the 2016 general election, Ghana's parliament recorded 35 females. Of course, so we can agree that there was an increment, but how significant it was is a debate altogether. Now, 35 women entered parliament, representing 13%, and then still we had the male dominance, because 240 MPs out of the 275 were males, representing 87%. So comparing the data in 2016 to that of 2012, you can agree that, well, there's been some improvement, but like we have stressed, all the improvements have rather been marginal and slow. Let's see what happened in the 2020 general election. Now, after the 2020 general election, well, 40 women now came to parliament. We can agree that is also an improvement, and the remaining 235 legislators were male. So in terms of percentages, it was 14.5 for the women and 85.4 for the men. Still, it appears there's so much more that we have to do. Now, the situation at the local assembly level is even worse, signifying a decline. So at the heart of lawmaking in parliament, we've seen some improvements. But if you were to be privy to the data at the district assembly, or let me say the local assembly levels, you would realize that women are almost not represented. We're moving on, and we indicate that that is rather a worrying decline. Now, in the last district level elections in December 2023, out of the 6,243 candidates, 95.9% of the male assembly members were elected, while females constituted only 4.1%. Out of 100, 4.1 were women, 95.9% were men. And that buttresses our earlier indication that at the district local and at the district assembly level, comparatively, women are almost, if you want to say, non-existent. That is a problem. Now, successive governments have put in place various policies and programs to empower women and address the low representation of females in leadership and decision making. This, we may want to say it is a plus, but as to whether or not it has been resourceful or it has been rewarding is another debate altogether. Now, these are some of the interventions that we have seen over the period. Of course, there's been the guarantee of women's rights in the 1992 Republican Constitution. So if you take the Constitution of Ghana, you realize that the rights of women is treated quite sacred solidly. You cannot in any way deflate it. But apart from that, apart from the guarantee of women's rights in the 1992 Republican Constitution, there's also been the provision of 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘, as well as the capitation and then the creation of the dedicated ministry for women's affairs. 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘 is the free compulsory universal basic education that effectively has sought to give women more access by way of grants. Now, there's also been the creation of dedicated ministry of women's affairs. So these are some of the interventions that we have seen over the period. Let's see if we have had any more interventions. Yes, we have, because there's also been the appointment of females to strategic positions such as the Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice roles, ministerial appointments, MDAs and MMDAs, boards, and running mates. Actually, in case you do not know, for example, we do know for it now that the NDC's 2024 running mate is a woman. She showed up in 2020, 2024, we are still seeing her. So these are some of the, if you like, interventions that we have seen over the period. But this is the concern, is that why is female representation in leadership still low in Ghana, despite the fact that they constitute the majority in terms of the population numbers? Why is representation still very low? So this afternoon we are asking the big question: how can Ghana ensure effective representation of women in leadership beyond the tokenism? We take a breather. When we come back, we delve into the gravamen. Don't go anywhere. All right, and so it's all about women today. We are discussing why women have been largely underrepresented in our national and governance space. And this afternoon, we have quite a prominent figure to help us assess and break the issue. In 2020, she was vying for the top job of presidency. Actually, and not so long ago, we met at the University of Ghana. This is just like, I think last 2 weeks, at the Great Hall where I moderated a function. 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘 is our guest this afternoon, and she joins us via phone. Hello, good afternoon. Are you able to hear us, Bridget?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to you.
Right. It's
US and listeners.
Right. It's a pleasure to have you, and this is a conversation that we treat as very serious. Right from the very outset, from where you sit, you have been on the front line before. Once upon a time, you actually wanted the top job of presidency. From all your experiences, what do you think accounts for the minimal representation of women across all spheres of our national life?
Well, first of all, I don't think that we value what women bring to the table. We haven't collectively as a nation recognized how much women contribute to the economy and to the social life and, you know, generally the development of the nation. So because we haven't valued it and placed value on it, we tend to overlook women's contribution and not recognize that if they are put in leadership, they will make a difference. So we have to first of all recognize we, the women, must make ourselves valuable and, you know, show our value, and then let Ghanaians in general, including the men, know what value we bring. Whatever we bring to the table has a certain value which they need to recognize.
So you make the case of value not being appreciated. It's a point that I have heard a number of people dispute, that sometimes women cry too foul, in the sense that indeed their values are appreciated, their worth is recognized, but they just sit in the place of convenience and always cry that somebody is not appreciating their value. You were on the ticket of a major political party and you would have been president. Does that, I mean, as it were, affirms the fact that women are not valued? Because if you were not being valued, you wouldn't have led a political party.
Well, let me ask you, how many political parties are there? And if there's one political party that has a presidential candidate who is a woman, is that representative of the population of Ghana? So what is the crying foul here? We have 17 political parties on the ballot in 2020. There were 3 women presidential candidates. So if you are saying, I mean, when you go into the political parties themselves, what positions do women hold in the political parties? When you don't, if the woman is not a women's organizer, I mean, wasn't it just recently that the NDC made Professor 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘 a vice presidential candidate? Before then, the PPP, my party, made 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗓, rest in peace, a vice presidential candidate. And following her was me. But how many women and what positions do they hold in our political parties? So if you say we are crying foul, where is the crying foul? It's the truth. It won't exist. The political parties do not give women the positions of leadership. They make them women's organizers so that they can organize food for them and maybe small roles.
That point is quite interesting. You make the case that so women really are deployed to roles which we may want to describe as menial. But is this I am playing the devil's advocate here today. Of course, while I recognize and I appreciate the difficulties, but do you think women have also in any way put themselves in a place of marginalization, for which reason we see these outcomes? Do you think that, of course, while we would blame the system and we'll interrogate it very soon, do you think that women also have played a role in the outcomes that we see regarding their participation?
Yeah, maybe they haven't played a role, which they should. And, you know, when I say there hasn't been value placed on us, women hold very key positions and play very vital roles when you go into our community. You have women who are, how do I put it? When you go to our districts, the districts and the communities in the districts, for example, is the women who are in the marketplaces. They pay the taxes. They contribute to development of the various communities. They play key roles, but because maybe nobody has sat down and quantified or valued these roles in terms of money, in terms of contributing to the economy, we don't see it. And I think it's about time women started to speak up, even in the marketplaces, to say, hey, it's our money that is building this place, and therefore we want a voice and we want representation. It's got to start somewhere. And maybe what has happened is we women have kept quiet for too long. And we've kept quiet because we feel that we don't realize the value of our contribution. And somebody has to make them realize. I keep saying, there's something I always say, that if Makola decided to go on strike, if the women in Makola or in 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘 or whichever of the big markets decided, you know what, we're not going to sell for 2 days, Bank of Ghana will suffer. But because we haven't taken our time to probably understand the economics and the finance of it, to say these are the people actually contributing to our economy, and this is the value of it. Maybe that's why the women don't have a voice or feel they don't have a voice, which they do, and that is what we should let them know. We should let all women know that this is your value, this is what you contribute to the economy and to the development of this country.
Right. There's so much to react to on this particular note. Because,
I mean, if I should add to that, go to the agri sector, one of the drivers of the economy. I think it's over 60% women in there. I know that 2/3 of the agri is controlled by women, or it has women in there. In the same way, our SMEs, these days they are driving the SMEs and saying private sector is driving our economy. SMEs are predominantly women-led and women-owned. So It's just that we need women to understand that this is your value, this is your contribution.
Who is going
and
to?
Therefore, you have a say, you have a voice, you must speak up.
So who is going to do that amplification? Because if you look at the data, clearly women form the bulk of the country's population compared to men. Women are in the majority. So if the same group of people are in the majority and they are indicating that their value is not being amplified, who is supposed to do the amplification under the circumstances?
Well, there are people who are working. We have organizations like Net Right. I do mentoring women. I have an organization called Mentoring Women. We are still in the process, and we need support. We need funding. I mean, women's empowerment and women's leadership is not for the benefit of only women. It's also for the benefit of men and the whole country. You know? So when this is being done, the men must also have their hands on deck, because it is for our entire, for everybody's development, not just women. I think most times when people hear about empowering women, they say, oh, the women are going to stand up against us and an empowered woman doesn't respect and things like that. But the truth of the matter is an empowered women's economy is for the benefit of the entire country, men and women and children. So who is going to do it? There are organizations that are already doing this, trying to make women aware of their value and empower them to speak up and take up positions. But you see, also, we gave a statistic of the local level elections, assemblies, and only 4% being women represented. I, for example, when I go to vote at the assembly level elections, I vote for the women. I look for the women, whether I know them or not. I choose the women first.
Regardless of their competence, regardless of whether they are competent or not, you just choose them because they're women.
Well, she's on the ballot. And not being on the ballot by itself is a certain level of competence. It's a certain level of confidence. There are many other men on the ballot there who are not competent either. And we know it's the truth. But because they are, by virtue of the fact that they are men, it's okay for them to be there. But then when it comes to a woman, then you start questioning their competence. It shouldn't be.
Absolutely. I want us to get to. Yeah, I'm saying absolutely. That point is fairly grounded. But I want us to talk about this now. Feminism, I'm sure you are very familiar with the concept. It's one of those, if you like, concepts that clearly, I mean, the objective is clear, it's certain, to amplify women and to take them away from the obscurity. But it is one of the things that some have argued has rather become a weapon, or if you like, an avenue for fighting men and competing men needlessly, reason for which the empowerment of women has been stifled in some circles. Do you think that feminism basically has been useful in this whole conversation about bringing women to the fore?
You are talking about feminism. Feminism is not empowering women. You know, there's a clear difference. And feminism and empowering women has nothing to do with fighting men. It's a matter of saying women also matter. Women are also important. I mean, you are giving the statistics and saying that the statistics are poor when it comes to the representation of women, which is the truth. I mean, if we are 50%, look, there's a book by 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗃, I think, which says women hold up half the sky. If you have a population of 30 million and more than 15 million of them are not empowered to contribute to the leadership or to the development of the country, you are hurting yourself. If you have half of your population not represented, more than half, so how do you expect to develop?
So don't you?
It's not even a matter of competing with men. We know that women add value to the development, and we are saying we should also, be represented, and and therefore we women must also recognize that because we are not represented, that is why we are at this stage that we are, and we must get up and start contributing.
But so you dismiss totally the assertion that feminism has not been has been inimical, because that is also part of the concerns that, look, the entire way of feminism, I mean, as expressed in certain quarters, has rather appeared more combative than constructive. You don't agree?
We've come to talk about women's leadership, not feminism.
But I mean, those who
there's a clear difference.
Absolutely, but those who trumpet and amplify feminism, basically, it is to bring women to the fore. You don't agree that's the essence of feminism?
Well, feminism is pushing the agenda of women being able to, and women's leadership is just, I don't know, it's a what should I say? Maybe a subset of all that feminism is pushing, or representation of women. Representation of women is different from feminism. We are talking about the politics and the democracy of this country and how women should be represented, not simply pushing. I'm a feminist. I believe in women's capability and women's representation, and women being heard and doing it a woman's way and all that. But we are talking about leadership in this country, democracy in this country, and where women should be represented for the good of all. I mean, how does that compete or fight with men?
Well, I mean, we had to get there because, I mean, that has also been part of the concerns that, look, yes, men also...
Concerns for who?
I mean, it's
for
a...
men?
Yeah, yes. It's a widespread concern that...
You see, and indeed, you're right. Men are afraid of losing power. And you have the power. What are you doing with it? What have you done with it? And when you have had the power, and you have more power, 90-something% at the local level compared to 4%, and look at what is happening at the local level. And it is not because men are not doing things right. It is because women are not part of it.
Is it about...
And we are saying, let women be part of it.
Is it about...
I mean, you want 95% of the power, and then do what with it? You are not doing things in that beneficial to the women. Women are in the market. They are contributing to the district level funds. And what are you doing for them? Why don't they have a voice? Why aren't they allowed to have a say with what you do with the monies they are paid?
But is it about... I mean, this is of concern. Is it about... the gender that is calling the shots at the table of policy and decision making? Is it about the gender, so that, I mean, it's not, so that we don't create the impression that, okay, we are not developing or we are not advancing because men are the ones who are at the helm, and if we had women, the situation would have been better? Is it really about the gender? I mean,
nobody is saying you should have women instead of men. We are saying there should be a balance. Nobody has said it should be women or women instead of men. But from the statistics you yourself started with, there is a clear imbalance. And there are women who bring a certain perspective to governance and to democracy and to leadership. There is a need for that feminine influence or that feminine touch. And we don't have it right now. Look, women in our communities, they are the ones who bring up the children, feed them, make sure they are healthy, go for water, go, decide what they must eat and clothe them, and all that. Go for fuel wood or firewood or electricity or whatever. Women are the ones taking these decisions in the homes, in the community. And yet when it comes to leadership, you say, oh, you can't have the power because we are competing with you. I mean, really?
Really? Yeah, it's a question that I find intriguing. But of course, I still have to put on record that permit me to play the devil's advocate here, as much as I recognize a lot of your concerns. But I want us to now narrow the conversation to the matter of corruption. I mean, corruption here in Ghana, and how that it has, as it were, eaten away the fiber of our progress. If women were at the fore, if women were at the center and they were calling the shot, what new thing do you think we were going to see in our fight against corruption if we had women calling the shots?
You know, let me say this, that today when I got the call from your station, from the lady, I forget her name, I was going to talk about indiscipline, not corruption. In fact, I wasn't even going to talk about women's leadership, from what I hear. I was going to talk about indiscipline. So you're putting me on the spot here. And you know, I'll take you on and say, you won't do this to a man. You will tell them in advance. I was called this morning for a 2:00 meeting, and I accepted. I often don't do that because the notice is short. And the lady told me this is what I was going to talk about, and I was very interested in it, in discipline in our schools and all that. And then you've chosen to change it. And I've decided to talk about women's leadership, and now you're taking me on into something else.
No, we are not. Sorry if it appears we are ambushing you or we are taking you on another wavelength. And I have to react to this, that when you say we wouldn't do this to a man, of course, for all our guests and discussants, as the conversations progress, at every given point, we throw in angles that are useful to the conversation. So if it's an angle you may not want to comment on, that's fine, but it is nowhere near ambushing. The question is coming because you have made the case quite clearly and emphatically that if women were at the fore, our fortunes would have been, as it were, better. I mean, if
you want me to talk about corruption, statistics show that women are not as corrupt as men. I mean, I hate to make these comparisons in generalizing, but the statistics prove that women are not as corrupt. You may hear of one or two cases, and I always say that if you look at our two major political parties, why is it that it is always the women who are the fall guys, if I should use that term? You look at every year or every regime of the these two political parties, and it was always the women's cases that come out of corruption or something like that, because they have been used. So, but when you look at it generally,
what do you mean?
Women are less corrupt. Women are not so,
what do you mean?
Or greedy to grasp for themselves. They are concerned about the people and their community and their children and others more than for themselves.
What do you mean?
So
what do you mean? What do you mean when you say women have been used? I'm interested in or women are used. I want to understand the context properly,
so
because
if it was the NDC, if you look at the scandals that came out about money or corruption, you will find that each time there are women who say they may have done something, but there are also men who have done things. And yet the women's names come out and they are vilified and all that. And that is what I mean by they've been used.
But there are men that are persecuted as well. I mean, there are men that are, prosecution goes on rather for men as well. For example, as of now, the minority leader the minority leader in parliament is facing a trial. Yesterday, there were some interesting developments in that particular respect. Men are equally vilified. So when you make the case that women are, is it isolated and selectively vilified?
I didn't do my research on this for today.
Right.
But you go and find out and see how many women ministers or deputy ministers in each party every time whose names come up for one thing or other when the party is in power.
And you think it is deliberate? You think it is calculated? You think someone is out there to hound women?
All I'm saying is this, that there are an equal number of men, but it does not come out. Women tend to be the fall guys. But you know what? I am frankly not interested in this comparison of women and men. It's too elementary for me. We know for fact that women in leadership make economic sense, make developmental sense. And for as long as we are going to leave out half of our population to have a role in leadership, in the leadership of this country, we are not going to be developing very fast.
So let's now get to the issue you had earlier prepped to, as it were, discuss on, the matter of indiscipline. Of course, it's one of the issues that has hampered our development. We want you to touch on solutions that we can implement to deal with it. Then we come to the constructive policies that we can also roll out to bring women more to the fore. So the matter of indiscipline, it cuts across board in our schools, in our domestic environments, and in the society at large. It is always a hurdle. Why do you think we have it in the first place? The argument has been divided that, look, indiscipline festers because we do not have effective law enforcers. Other people have opined that, look, we are indisciplined because attitudinally we were not socialized to obey rules and regulations. Where do you stand in this debate?
The second is a farce, it's a lie. I mean, we, the same people who were not, who supposedly have not been socialized to be disciplined people, we go to other countries and we conform. And we conform because then they enforce the rules and regulations and the laws. And this is exactly it. Because there's no enforcement, people get away. People can afford to be disciplined. I mean, I'm driving, and when I leave my house and sit in my car, the level of indiscipline on our roads, I wonder why. And nobody cares to do anything about it. When I was called this morning to talk about indiscipline, the first thing that came to me was, the level of discipline in my high school, Wesley Girls High School. And I thought that the first thing was that there were rules and regulations, and they were enforced. And we were made to abide by them. And if you flouted them, you were disciplined or punished for it. Now we have indiscipline because you can get away with it. There's nobody enforcing the rules. When she said in our schools, I said, for example, I have spent time in another school, which wasn't my school, because I was an athlete and I had to go to another school for super zonals. And I watched in horror how the students got away with everything. I mean, the bells rang and nobody obeyed them. The one that horrified me most was during prep and after lights out, the bells went and nobody cared to go. We seem to have put importance or emphasis on other things rather than excuse me a minute. We put emphasis on other things rather than education itself. We put emphasis on education by itself, only by itself. Education being passing exams, graduating with good grades or with grades. But all the other things that make up education, we have overlooked. And until we start to enforce those things, the rules and regulations, and supervise and ensure that people abide by these, we're going to have indiscipline, And it may be too much work for whoever is in charge to ensure or oversee or supervise. And that is why we are where we are.
Right. At this juncture, we want to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, the conversation would continue. If you're just joining we've been speaking to Bridget 𝗟𝗓𝗡. She is the 2020 presidential candidate for the PPP. We're going shortly. We'll be back.
Praise God, praise God. Christ in tea, you respond, 𝗟𝗓𝗃𝗓𝗃. I'm excited to announce to you, friends in the Lord, are you seeking for a platform where you can pray? Open baby up a soul bomb pie. Now nyami edi inkita home. Bibi so. And I'm na the same kum. And you're coming home. Let's go into the prayer room on WTV every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. to meet seasoned ministers of God that God has raised to impact your life. Remember, John Wesley said, I have too much to do, therefore I spend several hours in prayer in able to do it. That is why we are calling upon you. Meet myself, Reverend 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗦𝘁, and the Evangelism Missionary Renewal Directorate as we lead you into the prayer room where we encounter Christ. And I believe your life will never be the same. Call your friends, your loved ones, every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. where we will encounter Christ. God bless you. See you on our screens on WTV every Friday 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. God bless you.
It's the 75th anniversary of the Connectional Lay Movement. As part of the celebrations, the Connectional Lay Movement, under the auspices of the presiding bishop of the Methodist Church Ghana, the Most Reverend Dr. Paa Kwesi Schandorf, and the lay president, Brother Kwesi Schandorf, present an enthralling colloquium under the theme Lay at 75, mobilizing an all-inclusive laity for revival, transformation, and growth of the Methodist Church Ghana. The date for this all-important event is Saturday, 25th May 2024 at the main auditorium of the Wesleyan Towers. The time is 9 a.m. prompt, and the event will be live on WTV as well as all WTV social media platforms and the Methodist Church Ghana, Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, and webinar platforms. This colloquium will include a series of dynamic presentations with unique perspectives, experiences, and thought-provoking messages from seasoned lay stalwarts, dynamic ministers, passionate youth leaders, active professionals, and organizations, all in a bid to drive the movement for renewal. Join our speakers, the Honorable Professor Atuesuman, the Right Reverend Samuel Kofi Osabute, Brother Thomas Brody, Sister Mildred Atta, and Sister Anne Abanbedu, as they explore the challenges and triumphs of mobilizing an all-inclusive laity, emphasizing the importance of unity, diversity, and empowerment in fostering a thriving church community. Through candid discussions and insightful commentaries, participants and viewers will gain a deeper understanding of the vital role the laity plays in shaping the future of the church and driving forward its mission of love, compassion, and service. It's the 75th anniversary colloquium of the Connectional Lay Movement coming your way on Saturday, 25th May 2024 from the main auditorium of the Wesleyan Towers Ambassadorial Enclave, Ridge in Accra at 9 a.m. prompt on WTV and online. Don't miss out. I will serve the church.
When comes the promised time, that war shall be.
Thanks for your patience. You're welcome back. It's the John Wesley Day edition of the States here on Wesleyan Television. Don't forget that today is the day that as Methodists we have set aside to, as it were, remember and of course amplify the virtues and the illustrious works of the man John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, whose impact across the Christian divide, is a discussion that can be had for an entire duration. But more specifically, we are talking today about the involvement of women in leadership and governance at large. And we've been speaking to 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗘. In 2020, she was the PPP's presidential candidate in that famous election. Earlier, we were talking about what have been some of the bottlenecks, the systemic challenges that have impeded the participation of women, and the thoughts have been amazingly expressed. But in this last layer of the conversation, we want to talk more about solutions, what we can actively propose, implement and execute to ensure that the gaping disparity between men and women at the frontiers of national discourse is closed and almost, if you like, deleted. Because I want to take you to the data. I want to retrace the data that we shared earlier. Now, 50% of Ghana's population and a significant proportion of the country's voter population in particular are women, and if you look at the rest of the data we shared earlier, for example, in 2012 only 29 females were in parliament as compared to 246 for the male counterparts. In 2016 it was 35 compared to 240. In 2020, 40 compared to 235. Bridget, we can all agree that this has been a perennial problem. Let's get to the arena of solutions. What can we do first off from now to, as it were, address the situation?
Well, when I started, I said, let women understand what value they bring. And not just women, everybody, men and women. Let the political parties, I think that there should be some kind of legislation for representation of women at a certain level by political parties. The PPP, for example, has always, yes, as part of our manifesto, talked about the passing of the affirmative action bill for representation of women at a certain percent. I think it's 30% at the very least. First of all, the affirmative action bill by itself must be passed. I don't know why it's not being passed. And secondly, that it must be enforced where women are represented. Another thing is, as individuals and people in the society, we must promote women and support women who want to take up leadership roles or go into politics to lead their communities or to lead their constituencies. We must support them and we must promote them. It takes a lot of guts, and I can tell you that from my own example. That when a woman decides that I think I want a certain level of change and I want to be the one to prosecute that change, it takes a certain courage, and we must be supported. You know, so, and another thing is the women there must speak up. There's something I've always been saying. When you have decided to go into political leadership as a woman, you cease being a member of a political party, or you are first and foremost, let me rephrase that, you are first and foremost a woman before you become a member of a political party. So you are there representing the interests of all women who want to be in leadership. And you are there to represent all women in your community, regardless of which political party they support. So to be a woman in politics, you must be able to speak up for women. And that is it. So we must let women recognize their worth. We must promote them and support them. We must pass the affirmative action bill. And those women who are already there in leadership must recognize that they are there representing all women and not just one political party.
All right, these points are well noted, and I'm sure that the policymakers around the table will be working actively to bring life to them. But The 2024 general election will be upon us very soon. For those who saw you on the ticket in 2020, I'm sure people may be guessing, would you be showing up again? And if not, why not?
Well, the answer I always give to that question is just watch this space.
We are in let me even say we have entered June. We have barely 6 months to that crucial major election. We should still be watching the space. I mean, shouldn't we be, if anything, seeing anything now? We've been watching the space since 2020 up to now.
You'll be surprised what a difference 3 months can make.
So is this effectively an answer to the question that 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗓𝗍𝗓 would show up and vie for the office again?
My answer is the answer I gave you. I said watch the space.
Well, there's a woman who is, of course, Professor 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗃𝗓𝗓, who is with the National Democratic Congress. Let me just put you on the spot. If you were not going to show up, because you are telling us that we should watch the space, and that could mean, I mean, either you would show up or you would not show up. But let me take the other scenario of you not showing up. If peradventure she were to extend a hand of invitation to you, given the fact that you advocate for women to come to the fore, she comes around and says that, look, because of your advocacy, we need you on board. What would be your reaction in such a circumstance?
You need me on board as what? It depends. I mean, it can't be so general. There's got to be something they want me on board for, to act for. And if it is in the interest of women, first and foremost, I'm game.
So if Prof. Jane came around and said that, okay, I want to now be more particular about it, that, okay, she needs you on board to support the campaign, to front the campaign, subsequent to which there would be a high office for you to occupy.
The NDC will not come to me. It's too hypothetical.
Why would the NDC not come to you?
Because I belong to another political party.
But yes, we've seen people belonging to other political parties. I mean, not cross-carpeting necessarily, but being given opportunities.
They may not come to me to campaign for them. They could come to me to say, if and when they win, to ask me to play a role for them. And why not? It's for the country, it's for women. Fine, but not to campaign for them. I cannot do that.
Okay, but you cannot campaign for them, but you can occupy a role if given. For example, we saw how 𝗓𝗏𝗏, aligned with the MPP back then.
Exactly, but that was after the elections. It wasn't for Dr. 𝗓𝗏𝗏 didn't campaign for Kufuor.
So you are ready to serve, provided there's opportunity, regardless of which political party.
I'm ready to serve Ghana and the women of Ghana.
All right. Your closing remarks, if I have to put it that way, and then call it a show.
Well, women make good leaders too, and we must. And as we see that we make up more than half the population of Ghana, we must be pushing for the representation of women in politics and in our democracy and governance. And the one way to start that is maybe start by passing the affirmative action bill.
But are we even ready for women in the very first place? Do you get the impression that the generality of the populace is ready to have a woman calling the shots at the topmost level? Do you get the sense that
even the way you put it, a woman calling the shots, that by itself is negative.
Why is it negative?
As I said, I have to go. So, I mean, if more than half of your population is women, why wouldn't they be ready to have a woman in leadership?
So we want to fight. Do you get the sense that, I mean, people are ready for that in the very first place? I mean, the temperature of the voters, of populace at large, do you think it reflects that readiness?
I don't see why not. You have more than your half of your electorate being women. They should be ready.
Well, we would have to go, but basically it's still that same half of that population that elects the men. Reason that question is relevant, because more than 50% are women, yet they elect...
I'm afraid I have to go. I'm sorry. You know, like I said, this notice of this conversation was very short. So I think I've given you a lot of time. Okay? Yes.
All right.
If we have more than half of the population being women, they should be willing to have a woman in leadership.
Okay, that point is well noted, and we appreciate your time and company. So Bridget 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘 in 2020 was the PPP's presidential candidate in that election. In 2024, she says that we should watch the space for what is more. But here, strongly, we have to indicate that we support the cause for women to be at the front and for women to occupy top spots in our national discourse. My name is Paa Kwesi Schandorf. Happy weekend. We'll catch again on Monday.